I'm Ken DeCoste, and in this week's episode of Revealed, we're going to talk about this archway. If you guys recall, last week I walked you through how we were going to measure it and then bring it back into our shop and fabricate it. If you didn't catch last week's episode, you can click here. We'll post a link to that episode. As you can see behind me, we have started fabrication on this new entryway. Let me show you a little bit more in depth of how we got to where we are now and what is left for us to do. So as you can see here, we have the two pilasters just about complete. They're missing the corbels, which we will fabricate in shop as well. But for the most part, they are just about done. Now in a second here, I'll pull them down, send them over to the bench so you can get an idea of what they actually look like up close and see some of the molding details. So this door, obviously it does not go here. This is just a door that we had in our shop for another project, but it gives you a little bit of a reference as to the scale, the size of these, and the actual purpose of what they're going to be used for. So on this project, a little bit difficult to see, but I'll pull these down here in a second. We're using about 5 or 6 different molding profiles. And to assemble all of our miters and our cuts, we are actually using a polyurethane glue rather than, a weatherproof wood glue. I have personally in the past had that weatherproof, waterproof wood glue fail on me, and have done several very large ornate church window restorations with Sapele and a polyurethane glue without any issues. So I'm going to continue to use the polyurethane glues for the exterior applications when building stuff like this. Now with our pieces laying on the bench, we can give you a better look at them. Let me take a step back and kind of show you how we got to this point. Now last week we went and measured. Once we had our field measurements, we were able to reference some of our inspiration photos using those measurements and mock up what exactly our entryway is going to look like. Now I am not the best with this type of rendering and programming, but it is enough to give us an idea of what we're looking to build here, as well as some actual dimensions, and to see the scale and proportions to make sure that all of our moldings and just the general scale looks correct. So this is what we landed on. This is what the client approved. So if you remember, there was a light here. We're going and taking that light out and actually adding 2 lights to either side. So back over here to our pilasters. Now these are not columns, they're pilasters, and the difference between the two is actually that a column is usually round, and the majority of the time it is there for supporting the structure above, while a pilaster only projects somewhat from the wall and is typically only for decoration, which is exactly what we're doing here. And that's not to say a column can't be used for decoration on occasion, but just kind of a general term. That's the difference between the two. So here we are prefabricating everything in our shop, and we are fabricating everything in as few pieces as we can. So once we get to site, we can go ahead and remove the existing structure and go ahead and install the new facade. So in here we actually have an exterior grade MDF. Because this is so wide, to keep everything nice and flat and consistent, and it is all going to be painted, we opted for the exterior grade MDF in this case. We have our panel molding here, our base cap here. Like I said, about 5 or 6 different moldings will be going into this project. So swinging around and looking at the top here, this open space is actually where our corbel is going to sit. These corbels are something we're going to fabricate Here in-house, we haven't gotten that far just yet. So maybe by the time part 3 comes out, we will have these and just about everything else wrapped up, so you can look forward to that. So the corbels are actually going to have a backer on them that will mount and fill this void, so that we do have a place that we can keep them and lock them in from moving. Going up to the head of our pilaster or the capital, we actually have 2 pieces of moldings here built up. Let's try to give you guys a side angle shot of that. Now, the one thing about the polyurethane glue is it does expand when it is used. You do use it in conjunction with water. The water does cause the glue to expand and you get this foam-like squeeze out, which is pretty easy to sand out. And again, since it's being painted, if you do end up seeing some of it, it's not going to be seen in the end. So over the next few days, we're going to go ahead and finish fabricating the top of this with the arched crown, which I'll show you here in a second, and the remaining corbels, and get this project wrapped up so that we can go and install. So this here was the existing crown that we had removed. From here, we broke down how to find our radius. Again, we went into how to find that in last week's episode. You can go back and reference it if you're interested in learning how to find the radius of a curve. Once we did that, we went ahead and made our template here. From there, we went ahead and started to cut some of our pieces to make this segmented arch. Now, the way that this is going to work is we are running this through our molder, and we're gonna have to do it in 3 different cuts. So we're gonna go ahead and segment this arch. We left all of our pieces a little extra wide so that we can do this. We'll end up cutting them wherever we need to. And we're actually going to glue every seam, clean it up, and then route it to the size of our actual template. And we're gonna go ahead and do that on the shaper with just a pattern bit. A tip for if you are doing anything like this on the shaper, bear in mind they are very powerful tools. So you're gonna wanna leave some extra room on your actual template to catch the bearing before your actual workpiece does. So in this case, what I would do here, probably leave, this much space left on my tail of my template so that I can catch the bearing before my piece starts to cut. But if you don't, you can end up doing a lot of damage to not only your workpiece, but to yourself. So better to play it safe and leave a little extra room to work with. Once we do have our pieces glued up, trimmed to size, what we'll do is go ahead and make our first pass on the shaper here. And that'll be, let me spin this around and show you. And that'll be this first portion of the cut. Once we have that made, we're gonna go ahead and make a few more pieces just like this, segment them for the next piece here, make the second cut, which would be, somewhere in about here. And then lastly, once we have the third piece glued up on top of there, we'll go ahead and make this final pass. Once we have that done, we're also gonna go ahead and run some straight pieces so that we can have our returns coming off. We'll have to do the same process with those just because the size of this crown is very large, and to safely do so, we need to make multiple passes through some of our machines. Hopefully that gives you guys a better idea of how we're planning to fabricate this exterior facade here in our shop, then bring it back into the field where we can install it in just a day or 2. James has been in the shop crushing fabrication on this entryway, and next week I will have a lot more for you guys to see, and it might even be complete by then. So stay tuned and look out for that.